Playing with Power MTG. Powerful cards, powerful formats. Before we get into tonight's game, I wanted to ask a question. Do you have extra cards lying around that you don't use? Want to buy or trade for some extra cards but don't know how to maximize the value? Then you should try out today's sponsor, Card Conduit. Card Conduit is the best service when it comes to selling your extra cards. Don't waste hours trying to find the best buy list price for your cards online. Simply send them to Card Conduit and let them take care of the rest. I have used Card Conduit multiple times already. I always use them to get the best value for my extra cards. I get fair prices for my cards and they save me tons of time. They have three main services. Their standard service lets you send them your unsorted cards of any value. They will sort, grade, and give you the best price for your cards. Their curated service is similar. Send them your unsorted cards worth over $1 in value. They will charge half the fee of the standard service and charge no fee per card. Their sorted service is a great value as well. Choose cards in advance with their selection tool, send them sorted to Card Conduit, and they will grade and buy list them automatically. Save yourself the time of having to send to multiple sites and let Card Conduit do it instead. Their fee is only 2% with no fee per card. They give you the best price for your cards. They work with competitive buy listing partners, including ones not open to the public. Users get an average of 19% more for their collection than they would from any major retail buy list, even with Card Conduit's fees. Card Conduit also optimizes buy listing for card condition as well. Since vendors have different penalties for wear and tear, Card Conduit will find the best buy list priced against the specific condition of the card. So give Card Conduit a try today. If you sign up with my link in the description below or use the promo code POWER, you will also get 10% off of their fees when you use their service. A big thanks to Card Conduit for sponsoring today's video. Now, let's start out by showcasing our fighters this evening. First, we have Emma piloting Bant humans. This deck seeks to grind advantage with the abilities on all the humans while also attacking aggressively. Her opening hand contains a Collected Company, Mana Confluence, Thalia Guardian of Thraben, Reflector Mage, Thraben Inspector, Branch Loft Pathway, and an Extraction Specialist. Next, we have TK piloting Mono Green Devotion. This deck plans to generate a ton of mana with Nykthos and overwhelm its opponents. His opening hand contains a Llanowar Elves, Forest, Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, Storm the Festival, Pulchrinos Reborn, Willow Wolf Haven, and his London Mulligan is a Storm the Festival. Without further ado, let's meander over this meticulously mellow mountain melee. Emma parked in the best parking spot and gets to start us off. Emma plays a Boulder Loft Pathway. She casts Thraben Inspector. Inspector enters and Emma creates a clue. She passes the turn. TK draws and plays a Forest. He casts a Llanowar Elves. He passes. Emma draws and plays a Temple Garden into play untapped, paying 2 life. She moves to combat and attacks TK with Thraben Inspector. TK takes it, and in her second main phase, Emma casts Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. She ends her turn. TK draws and plays a Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx. He casts Willow Wolf Haven, enchanting his Forest. He passes the turn to Emma. Emma draws and moves right to combat, attacking TK with everything. TK takes the hit, and in her second main phase, she plays a Mana Confluence. She taps it to help cast Extraction Specialist. She ships the turn. TK draws and casts Pulchrinos Reborn. He passes. Emma draws and taps Mana Confluence to help cast Reflector Mage. Mage enters, bouncing Pulchrinos to TK's hand. Emma moves to combat and attacks TK with the team. TK takes it, and Emma gains 3 life. In her second main phase, she plays a Temple Garden into play tapped. She ends the turn. TK draws and casts Kiora, Behemoth Beckoner. He ships the turn. Emma draws and cracks her clue, drawing a card. She plays a Botanical Sanctum into play tapped. She moves to combat and attacks TK with everything again. He takes it, and Emma gains 3. In her second main phase, she casts Experiment 1. She passes the turn. TK draws and casts an Old Growth Troll. Kiora triggers and TK draws. He plays a Lair of the Hydra into play tapped. He activates Kiora's ability to untap his Forest. He casts Karn, the Great Creator. He activates Karn's second ability, fetching up a Haywire Might from his sideboard into his hand. He casts Haywire Might. He ships the turn back to Emma. Emma draws and moves to combat. She attacks TK with everything, TK dies, and Emma wins the game. Before game 2, Emma moves to sideboard. She adds in Redain, God of the Worthy, Malevolent Hermit, 2 Brutal Cathar, Portable Hull, and a Valorous Stance. She removes 3 Experiment 1, 2 Thraben Inspector, and an Adeline Resplendent Cathar. TK has no sideboard changes. For this game, TK's opening hand contains a Willow Wolf Haven, Karn the Great Creator, Llanowar Elves, Forest, Lair of the Hydra, and his London Mulligans are Karn the Great Creator and a Forest. Emma's opening hand contains a Malevolent Hermit, Temple Garden, Werewolf Pack Leader, 2 Botanical Sanctum, Adeline Resplendent Cathar, and a Secluded Courtyard. And TK gets to start us off. TK plays a Lair of the Hydra into play untapped. He casts a Llanowar Elves. He ends his turn. Emma draws and plays a Botanical Sanctum. She ships the turn. TK draws and plays a Forest. He casts Willow Wolf Haven, enchanting his Lair of the Hydra. He passes. Emma draws and plays a Botanical Sanctum. She casts Werewolf Pack Leader. She passes the turn. TK draws and casts Karn the Great Creator. He activates Karn's second ability, fetching up a Darksteel Citadel from his sideboard into his hand. He plays Darksteel Citadel. He ships the turn. Emma draws and plays a secluded courtyard naming Human as it enters. She casts Malevolent Hermit. She moves to combat and attacks Karn with Werewolf Pack Leader. Karn dies and Emma ends the turn. At the end of Emma's turn, she reminds everyone to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell to be notified of when we publish more. TK draws and casts Cavalier of Thorns. Cavalier enters, TK reveals Beseju who endures, Oath of Nissa, Llanowar Elves, Pulchrinos Reborn, and a Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. TK puts Nykthos onto the battlefield and the rest into his graveyard. He passes the turn. Emma draws and plays a Temple Garden into play untapped, paying 2 life. She casts a Reflector Mage. Mage enters and bounces Cavalier of Thorns to TK's hand. She moves to combat and attacks TK with Pack Leader and Hermit. TK takes it and Emma ships the turn. TK draws and casts Oath of Nissa. Oath enters, TK looks at the top 3, putting Old Growth Troll into his hand and the rest on the bottom of his library. He casts Old Growth Troll. He passes the turn. Emma draws and casts Thalia's Lieutenant. Lieutenant enters, and Emma puts a 1/1 counter on each of her other humans she controls. She moves to combat and attacks TK with Pack Leader. TK blocks with the Troll. Both creatures die, Troll triggers, and TK returns it to the battlefield as an aura on his forest. In her second main phase, Emma plays a Temple Garden into play tapped. She ends the turn. TK draws and plays a forest. He casts Cavalier of Thorns. Cavalier enters, TK reveals the top 5, putting a forest into his hand and the rest into his graveyard. He activates Nykthos, adding 9 green. He casts Storm the Festival. He looks at the top 5, doesn't like what he sees, puts Elvish Mystic and a forest onto the battlefield, and the rest on bottom. He casts Karn the Great Creator. In response, Emma activates Malevolent Hermit, sacrificing it and countering Karn. With nothing else, TK passes the turn. Emma draws and plays a Hinge Gate Pathway. She casts Adeline, Resplendent Cathar. Adeline enters, Lieutenant triggers, and gets a 1/1 counter. Emma moves to combat and attacks with Reflector Mage. Adeline triggers, and Emma creates a 1/1 human token tapped and attacking. Thalia's Lieutenant triggers and gets another counter. TK takes it, and in her second main phase, Emma casts Extraction Specialist. Specialist enters, and Emma returns Werewolf Pack Leader from her graveyard to the battlefield. Lieutenant triggers and gets another counter. All through, Emma ships the turn. TK draws and activates Nykthos, adding 10 green. He flashes back Storm the Festival. He looks at the top 5, putting Cavalier of Thorns and a Nykthos Shrine to Nyx onto the battlefield and the rest on bottom. Since there are now 2 Nykthos on the battlefield, he puts the old one into his graveyard. Cavalier enters, TK reveals the top 5, which has no lands, and puts the rest into his graveyard. He plays a forest and ends his turn. Emma draws and casts Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. Lieutenant triggers and gets another counter. She moves to combat and attacks TK with Reflector Mage, Thalia's Lieutenant, Adeline, an Extraction Specialist, and the Human. Adeline triggers and Emma creates a 1/1 human token tapped and attacking. Lieutenant triggers and gets another counter. TK blocks Adeline with Cavalier, Lieutenant with Llanowar Elves, and Extraction Specialist with Elvish Mystic. Cavalier and Adeline both trade, both elves die, TK takes the rest, and Emma gains 3 life. Cavalier triggers and TK puts it onto the top of his library. In her second main phase, Emma casts Extraction Specialist. Specialist triggers and returns Malevolent Hermit to the battlefield. Lieutenant triggers and gets another counter. Emma passes the turn. TK draws and activates Nykthos, adding 8 green. He casts Cavalier of Thorns. Cavalier enters, TK reveals the top 5, putting Beseju who endures onto the battlefield and the rest into his graveyard. He flashes back Storm the Festival. In response, Emma activates Hermit, sacrificing it and countering Storm the Festival. TK ends his turn. Emma draws and casts Thalia's Lieutenant. Lieutenant enters, and Emma puts a +1/+1 counter on each other human she controls. The first Lieutenant triggers and gets another counter. She moves to combat and attacks TK with everything except Pack Leader. TK takes a mountain of damage, dies, and Emma wins the match. Ladies and gentlemen, what a great match tonight. Congrats to Emma on her win. The combination of cheap humans with disruptive abilities proved to be too much for Mono Green to handle. Even in the second game when TK was able to activate Nykthos for a bunch of mana, it still wasn't enough to slow down the onslaught of humans. The most valuable card in tonight's match, sponsored by Luxury Playstyle, goes to Reflector Mage. When Mono Green gets a big blocker, the Reflector Mage clears the way for the humans to keep beating down. This is a massive tempo swing that really surges humans ahead in the game, all wrapped up into one creature. Well, that about wraps it up for this Pioneer match. What did you think? Did you like the game? What would you play differently? What other decks would you like to see? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.